Right. So yes, and one of the things we'll see in one of the slides down is that everything needs to be version controlled. Everything. When I say everything, right from your code, your configuration, your database scripts. If you want to achieve this level of automation, even if you wanted to change a small configuration on your server, let's say connection pooling to 10 to 30, you should not be doing manually. You should have an script which runs and changes your connection pooling from X to Y. And then that should go into your version control, because if you have to achieve this level of automation, everything should be automated. So in the interest of the time, let me just quickly run through a little fast. There are various approaches to application release automation. There is a declarative approach where you try to define the state of the server. So that is what Puppet and Chef was trying to do. They say, hey, this is how my latest and greatest shape of the server looks like. And if something is going out of sync, let it just be in a shape what I have defined. Without going into much detail, you probably may have some custom scripting done for automating. You may decide to take all the overhead of automating this entire thing that we are talking about. We don't recommend that because our recommendation is help build the application that you're focusing on, and pick up the tools that exist in the market to help you. And process-based approach to application release automation is what we recommend as a company, where the ARA tool that you're picking should help you define whatever process you have. You should be able to pick and choose the task that you perform in whatever sequence, right? So these are some of the tools which are completely process-based, which you can, if you're looking to evaluate and if you haven't started getting into an ARA domain. You have Nolio from CA, Urban Code from IBM, ThoughtWorks has a Go, deployed from ZBA Labs. And the fact that VMware has been very strong when it comes to infrastructure management, VMware is trying now to get into the application management domain, and that is where we are coming up with a product called CodeStream, which you may want to check out, because the fact that we already have a strong foothold on infrastructure and can tightly integrate with that gives us a lot of advantages in moving that story to application lifecycle management. So please watch out for CodeStream and check more details on internet. So I covered most of it. Let me just quickly touch upon CodeStream, because that's a product that we have been closely working on. It simply helps you automate all that we talk about. We spoke about various processes that you may want to do in your release process, right from provisioning to deployment to package. The product simply helps you pick and choose those tasks in whatever sequences that you want to perform, and create a pipeline of the release process that you may have without changing the processes that you adopt, without changing the tools that you may be using. You are free to use the tools of your choice for performing any of those tasks, right? Packaging, building, testing. It simply integrates with majority of the popular tools like Jenkins or script-based deployment. It is going to simply help you orchestrate your flow. And this is how it looks like. So it helps you model this entire process, where you may have UAT, system integration, staging, and production environments. And each of these environments, you may want to do different things, right? You may want to pull your code from Artifactory, then provision a machine on vCloud Air, and then deploy this code there, and then run a Selenium test. This could be the steps that you want to do, and then destroy the environment, because it's an internal thing. You don't want to keep those machines. You just want to quickly deploy, run test, everything is looking good. Let's tear down those VMs so that you save on the infrastructure cost. The staging or production, you may have a different requirement. So most of the tasks that I showed you in the previous slide, you can help orchestrate. You can pick and choose using our simple looking UI, and behind the scene attach them to the tools that you are already using. So if you are running your test automation via a Jenkins build, the tool would simply help you say run test, and by the way, this is the Jenkins instance I am running, and pick up, and this is the build, this is the job that is doing the test automation, and it will simply perform that task. So if I'm hoping that I would have got you guys interested in the whole application release automation space. These are some of the prerequisites from our opinion. You need to standardize tools across various teams, because you would have seen that we are helping you, streamline the whole process, right? And unless you have the same set of tools being used by your dev, your QA, your ops, it's going to be slightly difficult. So if you can have streamlined tools that all your stakeholders are using, it becomes simple and easy for you to orchestrate the process. Version control everything. I think you asked about the configuration. So in our opinion, everything should be version controlled, irrespective of whether it's a code or configuration or something else. Automate every task, because then only you will be able to orchestrate this. And then continuous integration is a must. It's a prerequisite and must before you start thinking about ARA. So if you do not have continuous integration already in place, I think you should start thinking about that first before you move to ARA. Some of the advantages, I think I don't need to talk about it. By now you would have already understood that there are tremendous advantages of moving to application release automation. And thank you so much. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me. I'll be available during the lunch, and I hope that I would have given you enough insight. I have just 45 minutes, so I restricted it to.
The CodeStream product that you talked about, does it support stack provisioning, pattern provisioning, using any of the hypervisor that we use in our real-time environment?
Yes. So there is a direct integration with the VMware products. So if your endpoint is like one of the vSphere, or we have a direct integration with that. But if you are provisioning in any of the other endpoints, there is a support for invoking custom workflows, and those, let's say you can invoke, one of the scripts which can eventually go and do provisioning on AWS or hypervisor. So yes, so there is a support.
The direct replacement, I can take it as a Cloud Foundry kind of a thing. I don't need to use any.
Maybe yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Any more questions? Yep, thank you so much.
So already enterprise is using Jenkins for the deployment automation.
Okay.
So if I purchase this VMware tool, what is the value add it will bring?
So good question, we can talk about it. I do not want to sound it like a business pitch, but we can definitely talk about it during the lunch, and I can talk more about the business value that it can. All right, thank you so much.
Yeah, so next session is by Cyrus Dasadia. He's a senior tech lead DevOps from InMobi. Management automation tool DevOps.
So in the interest of time, I'll just keep on going really fast. If you have any questions, maybe we could have it at the end of the session. So I am a senior tech lead at InMobi. I usually like to do stuff in Python, and as you can see, I'm a big fan of Monty Python. Why are we here? Most of you have spoken about continuous integrations, delivery, getting the things out there. But then comes the real, bang of the buck. What happens after you deploy your applications? You may have the best NOC sitting out there, you may have the best monitoring system sitting out there, or you probably have, one of the leading cutting edge technologies which could snoop into your pipeline and see what's happening, sniff out stuff and then alert you. But when alerts come in, they come in really bad. Imagine a single core switch going down in your rack. That could affect all the machines in that rack, which could trickle down to your database servers, could trickle down to your application, and so on and so forth. So you may end up having close to around, let's say, 24 alerts for one single switch port going down. And when it comes to finding the mean time to resolution, you kind of dabble around, hey, who owns this, who owns that, what could have caused this, what can cause this, and so on and so forth. So what is there in the ecosystem right now that can help you fix this is my real question. But before we go there, let me tell you why this kind of problems happen. So usually when we start scaling up, I usually come from a startup culture where things scale up. I've been to large enterprises where scale has already been there, but as and when you scale up, you need to keep evolving. You need to evolve the way you deploy things. You need to evolve the way your systems are going to behave. You just need to start understanding how the alerts are going to change. If a CPU threshold is meant to be X level, maybe after feature Y is going to be X plus 5. If something else is scaling up or down, you need to constantly tune those things. And if that's not enough, you need to keep ensuring your team's capability on how they throttle the alerts, they throttle the monitoring systems. But there could be times, when you just slip and things just go bad. I mean, things go really bad, and at that time, you kind of try to dabble through all these technologies and see what can fit in. So let's say I have all the monitoring systems, and then I'll group this and plug that in, and then plug that in, and this will do this, and this will do that. And hopefully by then, I should be able to understand that if my switch port goes down, the resulting cause and effect would be this to that. So we were dabbling through all these services, and we thought, okay, let's see what's there in the market that will help you aggregate all these alerts and gives you a holistic view of what's happening in the systems. We went through obviously CloudWatch. It's a very good if this and that kind of a rule set, but the only downside is it's restricted to Amazon and it's 50 cents per alert. Sensu Intrusive has a limited amount of capabilities, but it leaves an agent. You have Xenos, Nagios. I'm not going to touch that at all. You all know Nagios, but I mean, it's a joke. PagerDuty. Have you guys ever used PagerDuty, by the way? Awesome, right? So when there's something really bad happening and you use a dashboard, you're not able to make sense out of it. Okay, there are tons of alerts. This guy did something then, but I don't know what could be causing what. And obviously, some guy would say just restart the server. That could probably help. So what you really need here is something that essentially allows you to define a behavior. A behavior in this case, let's say, is an event where you expect. A CPU spike is an event. Service going down is an event. If you have certain definitions already there, then all you want is certain sets of actions across those events. So you say, okay, for this particular action event, I want this thing to be done. And by having these rule sets in place, you can then leverage the fact that any of those previously shown applications, your monitoring systems or your alerting systems can be triggered, emails can be triggered. So it's a whole pipeline which you can set to ensure that all the events are actioned upon automatically without you having to worry and try to correlate things. Hence comes CytoEngine. So CytoEngine at a core is very, very bare, minimal, and simplistic if this then that rule set. I'll give you a set of examples. Let's say you have a host going down. That's an event, right? So what you want is if a host goes down, and let's say it's not reachable, and that event comes twice in 5 minutes, send me a PagerDuty alert. Let's say my sales numbers have gone down by $10. I don't want to be paged. My on-call doesn't need to be paged by then. I can just shoot out an email. Or I can have a Graphite plugin which just shoots a metric out and then it just plots it. Or I can file a Jira bug. Or I can have a Bugzilla thing. The possibilities are endless. CytoEngine at the core is, as I said, an open source application, and it comprises of an event listener, a queue, where all the events go in. Then there is this poller mechanism which keeps on polling it at real time, and the engine passes through the rule sets, and then there's a subsystem which is called the plugin server, which can be used to execute actions. The good part about it is, even though you don't need any actions happening, let's say you don't want any of those plugins being actioned upon, you can still use the core engine to at least correlate and find out what's happening in my DBA team, what's happening in my application operations, NetOps, security, BizOps, and I'll show you a dashboard which will make sense out of it. So when I said defining an event, let's say in this case I define an event which is called 666, and it relates to traffic spike. So for an event, your monitoring systems will start throwing incidents. So let's say here incident 200 depicts that there is a traffic spike on this host, and this is the value. You can have a separate incident coming in on the event saying that there's a traffic spike on the other host called food.bar.com, which is for X amount of events. So at this point of time, you can keep sending these alerts, and now you know exactly how to work around it. You have you have your runbooks there, which can be hooked onto this event, and it can be actioned upon separately, saying that if my event occurs 100 times for this host, I can do this. If my event occurs for 1,000 times on this host, I can do that, and just have it automated. You don't need to worry about, having to tell this to knock or some on-call engineer to do it. So I'll just walk you through the user interface because lack of time, I won't be showing you a demo. So an event definition is extremely simple. You just say, okay, this event is saying this is 75%. This is my short description, severity, team, category, and the status enabled. All these components are something which you can use to pull out the reports, and they can then be correlated to find out cause and effect patterns. You create an action. So if my disk is full, the most common action which I see lots of engineers do is clear the temp directories, right? The on-call engineer will log into server, clear the temp directory, run temp watch, or see if the cron job is running or not. You can just say that if this event occurs twice, I'm not sure if you can read it, twice in 60 seconds, the third line, then execute this command. That's all you need to do. Well, I said the concept of plugin server where you can have external plugins.